Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome everyone to our Zoom satsang. Starting today with a short review of last time. We were talking about, the first topic last time was Gurudeva's introduction in each of the Master Course Trilogy books, which is included in the How to Study the Master Course, his idea of using effort. So we'll take a quick review of that before we present some new material. First idea, there is a strong tendency when a student first begins meditation to want to give up external things, to give up work and devote more time to making his meditation the perfect thing. But this is not the spirit of the Master Course. 2. If someone wants to meditate, Gurudeva said that step 1 is to prove to himself that he can work positively in the world, performing his duties with full energy, intuiting how the whole mechanism of life is constructed, the exterior world, his mind, himself. 3. Master the simple things, perform every task, even the most mundane act, to perfection. 4. Then 10, 15, or 20 minutes of good dynamic meditation a day and the Master Course studies to guide the mind along in a step-by-step manner are more than sufficient. In other words, instead of succumbing to that tendency to withdraw from the world, which it doesn't only occur at the beginning of taking up meditation, it can occur due to other events in our life and at other times in our life. We start to withdraw from the world. The world is something we want to have less to do with. Oh, that's not good, unless you're a monk. Unless you're formally a monk, you don't want to withdraw from the world. You want to put more energy into the world. So that may seem a contradiction, but you want to put more energy in the world, do what you're doing even better. Upgrade your activities in the world. And even small things like washing dishes, pay attention. Don't let the mind wander all over the place. Use it as an opportunity to improve your concentration. That's the summary. Then we get some new material. This is from the teachings of Paramaguru Yogaswami that relate to that idea of effort and putting more energy into the world, doing better at the tasks we do in the world. And it's verbatim. It's a talk I gave in London in May 2017 at an event in honor of Yogaswami. Those who are listening today who are in London will remember that. I believe it was in the basement of the Highgate Murugan Temple. We had the Yogaswami event. So what's that? 3 years ago already. So it's just verbatim. So it starts out just like I would if I was there. Shambhagunatha Swami was with me. Shambhagunatha Swami and I are happy to be here today for this event, honoring our Paramaguru Yogaswami. I regularly attend satsangs with Yogaswami's devotees in Toronto, Canada, and on occasion in Sydney, Australia, and London. Always the first Nachintana Engel Gurunathan is sung. I like to say singing it invokes Yogaswami's presence. That is certainly how it feels. So I noticed that with regularity that everything feels ordinary, and then the devotees start singing Engel Gurunathan, and after it's been sung a while, it feels like Yogaswami's present in the room. It's very interesting. So it might work in your home too. If you want Yogaswami to visit, you could sing all the verses of Engel Gurunathan. Oh, this is a story. You might be interested in knowing that the first time I listened to Yogaswami devotees sing the Chintanai was in 1972 at the Siva Nilium KKS Road, Jaffna. And at the time, I was impressed, because I wasn't used to Carnatic singing, that there was no music in the songbook. In the West, you have to have music. But in Carnatic style, you just have to have the name of the raga and the tala, and then everybody knows how to sing it. So I was impressed that such intricate melodies came out of two words, the raga and the tala. Gurudeva gave a guideline to his devotees that when holding satsang among themselves to primarily sing Nachintanai. Outside of Yogaswami devotees, we are the only other group I know of that gives emphasis to Nachintanai. Otherwise, it's just his direct devotees. And that was an interesting event that took place based on that idea when we were at the Yogaswami ashram, his hut there in Kolumbuturai, for a formal event. And it was during the inner search. Must have been his Guru Puja day. And there were some elders there conducting the event, and they were singing Nachintanai, and then some of our devotees from Mauritius asked to sing Nachintanai, and they sang them just beautifully, and the elders were totally impressed. They'd never seen anyone from another country, from another tradition, sing Nachintanai so well. So about Nachintanai, for those who don't know, Yogaswami's style of teaching and Gurudeva's style of teaching are very different, so the contents of what they taught are the same. So Yogaswami did not write his teachings down for his devotees. Rather, he put them in songs, and then the devotees wrote the teachings down. Gurudeva meticulously wrote the teachings down and didn't sing. He danced, but he didn't sing. So why the difference? Well, when Yogaswami was singing, the group he was singing to knew the teachings. The teachings were something they'd learned growing up. They're even taught in the government schools. The Saivanary course is studied by all Hindus in government schools still. So they knew all about Saiva Siddhanta. Yogaswami was teaching them deeper things with his songs. But in the West, Saiva Siddhanta is virtually unknown, so Gurudeva wrote it down meticulously so everyone could understand it. First printing of Nachintanai was 1959 by the Siva Society. And the Nachintanai songs have the usual Saiva Siddhanta emphasis on devotion to Shiva Peruman, but include a great deal more. They show profound devotion to his guru, Chelapaswami, and respect for his guru's four Mahavakyam. Also emphasis on the importance of practicing meditation and frequent references to the oneness of all, that Jiva is Shiva. So those are kind of unique to his songs. Yogaswami gave different people different sadhanas, spiritual disciplines they could follow to make spiritual progress. In other words, he didn't say the same thing to everyone. He understood where they were on the path and gave them what was their logical next step. Shiva thondu, service to God Shiva, was one of two medicines he most frequently administered. The second was Shiva Dhyana, meditation on God Shiva. So we're going to look in more depth at the sadhana of Shiva thondu, because that relates to our idea of effort in Gurudeva's writings. And you'll see some of the same things said that Gurudeva says. Many individuals think that their work, for example, being a doctor, has nothing to do with making spiritual progress. However, when we view our work as the fulfillment of our dharma, then it is no longer separate from religion. That's called jati dharma, or varna dharma, our job, the dharma that our specific job has. Jati or varna dharma. Of course, we do work to earn money to support our family, but we also do so to benefit society. To encourage this shift in paradigm in his devotees, Yogaswami would frequently bring up the idea of work in conversation. Here are 4 examples from Words of Our Master, which, for those who don't know, it's a collection of his sayings. So he was constantly talking to devotees, and some of them wrote down what he said and assembled it in a book called Words of Our Master. So here we have 4 quotes. Yogaswami would often end darshan sessions with a devotee or family with the admonition, "Now go and do your work." Once when we were all at Swami's place eating from plantain leaves, when everyone had finished dinner, a lady doctor who was there wanted to take Swami's leaf to throw it away. Swami said, "I can do my work. You do your work." 3rd quote, "The hand does its work, the leg its work, so everyone does his work. The trees their work, the laborer his work, the teacher his work, the sage his work. Work is swadharma, following your pattern. God is the great Maharaja who sits witnessing all this. There is nothing imperfect in the world. Witness everything as God does." 4th quote, "All work must be done with the aim of reaching God." So, developing that idea, when we are stable in the viewpoint of performing all work with the aim of reaching God, this naturally leads to a deeper perspective that each task we are doing is an offering to the Lord. Just as placing a flower in front of a murti or picture of the deity is an offering, each task we do is also an offering. Each is simply a different way of worshiping God, a different way of bringing us closer to God. This perspective on work is known as Ishvara Pranidhana. So we have 2 quotes from Yogaswami on that idea. Yogaswami once spoke to a laborer who was cleaning the lavatory outside his hut. "Oh, Ramaswami, are you doing Shiva Puja out there?" So even cleaning the lavatory should be looked at as an offering, is the point. Yogaswami's words to a young man just starting his career were, "You are going out to work. You must dress well and look dignified. Everything should be an offering to God. The world is an altar." The term Shiva-thondu means service to God, and one who performs this service is called a Shiva-thondar or Shiva-nadiyar, which literally means a devoted servant of God. Shiva-thondar or Shiva-nadiyar conveys a mystic relationship between the devotee and God in which all spiritual, mental, and physical actions are perceived as fulfilling the will and design of God. The fact that the institution Yogaswami founded is named Shiva-thonda Nilayam shows how central this concept was in his teachings. There is an important statement by Yogaswami about Siva-nadiyar in his 3rd Nachintanai letter on the topic of Shiva-thondu. The Tamil is simple enough that I can read it, which is unusual for something this long. Usually I can't get beyond 2 short sentences. Nango Siva-nadiyar, Nango Siva-nadiyar, Nango Siva-nadiyar, Nango Siva-nadiyar. Idu Sarayai, Idu Kiriya, Idu Yogam, Idu Yanam, Idu Maran, Idu Mandiram, Idu Tandaram, Idu Marandu. In English, we are Siva-nadiyar, we are Siva-nadiyar, we are Siva-nadiyar, we are Siva-nadiyar. This is Charya, this is Kriya, this is Yoga, this is Yana. This is mantra, this is tantra, this is the panacea, or medicine, Marandu. So what's the idea there? Charya, Kriya, Yoga, and Jnana are the 4 stages of practice in Saiva Siddhanta, and thus refer to the totality of religious disciplines. What Yogaswami is stressing in this statement, of course, is that the core attitude of being a devoted servant of God is the key to making progress on this spiritual path. So I'll read that again. That's a good sentence. The core attitude of being a devoted servant of God is the key to making progress on the spiritual path. Second aspect of being a Siva-nadiyar is that one regularly performs selfless work in service to others. Karma Yoga. We have a story on this in our book, Guru Chronicles. Swami opened a path of service to his devotees. Work, work, work. Serve, serve, serve. He always had a project going, something that seemed like more than anyone or any group of people could accomplish. And he demanded it be done to perfection. Sounds like our reading, right? Never allowing them to settle for second-rate performances. If it was a drama for a Hindu festival, he would boldly offer advice about the production. Swami might even act out parts of the pageant like a director, rehearsing scenes, stretching each participant a little beyond what he thought was his capacity. Same idea. Do it even better than you think you can. It's part of Gurudeva's teachings. Yogaswami, you are more than you think you are, he would chide. Each one discovered new strength in fulfilling his expectations. A devotee recalls, if you were organizing a feeding for 1,000 people at Nalur Temple, he made sure you had everything planned well so the event would go smoothly. He wanted to know precisely what curries you planned to serve and might suggest substitutes or cutting back on the quantity. 3 curries is enough, he would direct. If you and other devotees were rebuilding a temple that had fallen into disrepair, he would get involved, making sure you rebuilt it properly and had the necessary ceremonies conducted for its reopening. He would even inquire if you had provided an adequate endowment to keep the temple functioning well into the future. So he was interested in endowments as well as Gurudeva was. These stories bring out another aspect of Siva thondu, which is doing every task well, which causes us to strengthen our willpower and self-control. A quote from Words of Our Master expresses this idea. Whatever work you have to do, do it well. That in itself is yoga. So it's very much related to yoga because you have to concentrate. To do a work well, you have to concentrate, and that's the essence of yoga, is improving your concentration. The last paragraph of the story brings up another aspect of being a Sivanadiyar, which is to truly feel that rather than I am the one who has achieved this, that it is God Shiva who is making this happen through me and the others involved. If a devotee had accomplished something and came forward to Swami for praise, he would strip him down to size quickly. Sometimes he would ignore a devotee's achievement entirely and quickly guide his attention to another project that needed work. Or he would scold, so you think you have put on a good feeding? Was it you who put life into the food, into those who cooked the curries? Who created hunger? Who discovered the way to satisfy it? My child, you must not think you have done anything. It is all the work of the Lord. When you know that, then you will know you have done nothing. So that's an interesting idea. In modern terms, I use the computer analogy. If you imagine that the computer had a consciousness and it had a sense of pride in how well it was functioning. It's very fast, it has the newest chip, has the best programs. It's very proud of what it's doing. But of course, what is it ignoring? It's ignoring that it counts on electricity. Without electricity, it can't do anything. So it needs to be humble in the sense that electricity is doing it all. Without the electricity, I wouldn't be able to do anything. So likewise, God is the life of our life, and without God being there inside of us as the life of our life, we wouldn't be able to do anything, just as the computer wouldn't. Last quote from Yogaswami, which summarizes this. See everything you see as Shiva. Do everything you do as Shiva thondu. Give up this I and mine. Oh, one last comment on this section before moving on. You can see the absolute similarity and the key ideas between Gurudeva's write-up and Yogaswami's approach. They're saying the same thing, that we don't want to divide the world into secular and sacred and just focus on the sacred. Our shrine room, the temple, ignore the rest. No, we want to make it all a one thing. in Yogaswami's words, the world is an ashram. We want to make it all sacred by focusing on what we do in the world, not what's going on in the world, but focusing on what we do in the world as an opportunity to be of service to others, as an opportunity to improve our willpower, as an opportunity to improve our concentration. It's an opportunity. It's an ashram. So we want to take advantage of the opportunity and not get distracted by all the imperfections, of which there are many these days. Time to share the screen. Getting better at this. Whoops. Wrong one there. There we go. Share. And you have a blank slide. That's what it's supposed to be blank. There we go. The three perfections of God Shiva. In the last Zoom satsang, the second part of the presentation included Gurudeva's vision of Lord Shiva on Sanmarga. Today we will look at Gurudeva's description of Lord Shiva as presented in the first three beliefs of the 12 beliefs of Saivism. For ease in understanding these beliefs, we will look at first at belief number 3, then number 2, and then number 1. It's actually easier to understand them in reverse order. Or it's important to distinguish between two approaches to God Shiva. We have the experiential approach. So Gurudeva had a vision of the personal form of God Shiva. You can also experience God Shiva as omnipresent consciousness and the transcendent source of that omnipresent consciousness. So that's the actual experience, the anubhava, the experience. Then we have concepts about Lord Shiva. So these are three concepts about Lord Shiva. Well, concepts are not the experience, right? But concepts help us have the experience. They keep us from getting confused. They help us go to the right place. They can be a map. In the old days, maps used to be printed. And if you were traveling somewhere you weren't familiar with, you needed a good quality map. Nowadays, it's all on the smartphone or in the car itself, a guidance system. And we get to where we want to go much more efficiently nowadays because of the digital GPS system. So a great map helps us get somewhere efficiently and successfully. So intellectual concepts about God Shiva can help us have the actual experience, the anubhava of God Shiva eventually. Give us a better understanding of where we need to look and how we need to look. Belief number 3, regarding God as personal Lord and Creator of all. Shiva's followers all believe that Lord Shiva is God, whose eminent nature is the primal soul, Supreme Mahadeva, Parameshvara, author of Vedas and Agamas, the creator, preserver, and destroyer of all that exists. Om. Parameshvara, Supreme Lord, Mother of the universe, is the eternal sovereign one, worshipped by all the gods and sentient beings. So loved is Shiva-Shakti that all have an intimate relationship. So vast is his vastness, so overpowering is he, that men cringe to transgress his will. So talked of is he, that his name is on the lips of everyone, for he is the primal sound. To love God is to know God. To know God is to feel his love for you. Such a compassionate God, a being whose resplendent body may be seen in mystic vision, cares for the minutiae such as we and the universe such as ours. So that's what we were looking at last Zoom satsang, was Gurudeva's vision of Parameshvara, Shiva's whose resplendent body may be seen in mystic vision. Beautiful description here. Many are the mystics who have seen the brilliant milk-white form of Shiva's glowing body with its red-locked hair, graceful arms and legs, large hands, perfect face, loving eyes, and musing smile. The Agamas say Parameshvara is the cause of the five manifest aspects: emanation, shrishti, preservation, sthiti, dissolution, samhara, concealment, tirobhava, and revelation, anugraha. The image of Nataraja is the perfect symbol for illustrating the primal soul, Parameshvara, performing the five actions. Creation is symbolized by the back right hand holding the drum, as we all know. Preservation by the front right hand giving blessings. Destruction by the back left hand holding the flame. Concealment by the planted right foot, and revelation by the upraised left foot and lower front hand pointing to it. So that's the important one because it gets two limbs. It's got one foot and one hand. I look at the hand that points as an exclamation point. This is the important one here. This is the way out of samsara. Paramaguru Yogaswami describes Parameshvara in a number of his Nachintanai songs. Here are quotes from two of them. O Lord of knowledge, who at Tillai danceth, O Shiva, 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 who art that supreme. O Shiva of Tillai, who by thy gracious nature the five actions in the dance thus show through thy sweet holy form. So each of the beliefs ends with a said simply. Summarize. Said simply, Parameshvara refers to God Shiva as a person. That's the minimum to remember. Belief number 2, regarding God's manifest nature of all-pervading love. Shiva's followers all believe that Lord Shiva is God, whose eminent nature of love, Para-Shakti, is a substratum, primal substance, or pure consciousness flowing through all form as energy, existence, knowledge, and bliss. Para-Shakti, supreme energy, is called by many names: silence, love, being, power, and all-knowingness. It is Satchit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, that pristine force of being which is undifferentiated, totally aware of itself, without an object of its awareness. It radiates as divine light, energy, and knowing. Paramaguru Yogaswami described this state in the following way: Sat Chit Ananda. That is one thing, Satchit Ananda. Sat is who you are. Chit is omnipresence. Prakasha, light as from the sun, all-knowing. Ananda is bliss. They are three, but they are one. That is your nature. Though that last sentence is important to comment on. I noticed this many, many years ago and compensated by adding certain things to my talk, but attending so many Yogaswami devotee events, they all had the same quality in common, that the devotees put Yogaswami up on a pedestal as a great yogi who had great inner mystical attainments, which is good. But they put themselves down on the floor as someone who could never have those attainments. So that's not right. Having a humble attitude, being the devoted servant of Shiva, doesn't mean you will not have the same attainments as a great yogi like Yogaswami. But that was the mindset. The humble, devoted servant part was, you get A+ for that, but the idea that you won't have these experiences yourself was not understood. In Gurudeva's teachings, well, the point there is, before I move on to that, it's the last word. That is your nature. So Yogaswami is saying, it's not just my nature, it's your nature as well. In Gurudeva's teachings, the one that I remember on that is in the clear white light. Talks about the young aspirant seeing a vision of a great soul peering into him, great master peering into him, having that vision, and Gurudeva says, that is your potential. So he takes the same approach as Yogaswami. That is your potential. Don't think that the master is great and you're simply a humble, devoted servant. Be a humble, devoted servant who's eventually going to achieve what the master achieved. Get an analogy. Whoops, sorry. Touched the wrong screen here. I have two things I have to move, and if I touch the wrong one, then I end up in the wrong place. Here we go. As an analogy, let's look at a japa mala of Rudraksha beads. And let's get the slide to move. It consists of 108 regular beads and one extra bead known as the God bead. Each bead represents a soul in this analogy, and the God bead represents God. If the bead is conscious of being a bead, it sees itself as separate from all other beads and from the mala's special God bead. However, what is inside the beads? It is a thread, and there is only one thread. Thus, if a bead turns within deeply enough and is only aware of the thread inside, that is comparable to experiencing God Shiva's omnipresent consciousness of Satchit Ananda. Simple way of understanding it. And our summary statement said simply, Para-Shakti refers to God Shiva as omnipresent consciousness. Belief number 1 regarding God's unmanifest reality. Shiva's followers all believe that Lord Shiva is God whose absolute being, Parashiva, transcends time, form, and space. The yogi silently exclaims, "It is not this, it is not that." Yea, such an inscrutable God is God Shiva. Then we get a Yogaswami story. When Yogaswami began living in his Kolumbuttarai ashram, he would spend the first 3 days of a week in meditation. He would rest on the 4th day, and again he would spend the last 3 days in meditation. Even after the devotees began to arrive in great numbers, he would be wrapped in meditation at will. On Shivaratri day, it was his custom to meditate through the night. A few devotees who had the good fortune to be with Swami at these times saw a light shine where Swami's body should have been. Those devotees who saw this shining light for a few seconds believed that this was the divine light that shone from his blemishless form and was his true form. Even those who could not see this shining light were amazed at the erect, still form of Swami, seated like a statue without any movement. That golden form sat as still as his umbrella in the corner. On one occasion, when Swami sat like a pillar, a crow came flying, rested on his head for a while, and flew away. Yogaswami made reference to this event in one of his sayings in the book Words of Our Master. If you think of the state of Shiva, which is beyond all attributes, it won't come. It will come by itself. One day when I was in that state, a bird came and sat on my head. Even yogis and jnanis can't understand that state. Of course, Yogaswami is speaking of the experience of Parashiva. So, or said simply, Parashiva refers to God Shiva as the transcendent source of all. In summary, God Shiva Pati is a one being, yet we understand him in 3 perfections. Parashiva, unmanifest reality. Para-Shakti, pure consciousness. Parameshvara, primal soul. The 3 perfections are helpful divisions in understanding the nature of God, but God Shiva is the combination of all 3. So that's similar to dividing up a human being. We say he has a physical body, he has emotions, he has an intellect. We can study each of those 3 separately, but the human being is the sum total of all 3, and they do interact in a holistic way. What about Shakti? Has nothing been mentioned about Shakti as a separate idea? Let me read that again. What about Shakti? As nothing has been mentioned about Shakti as a separate deity so far. Common symbolism is to depict the deity such as Lord Shiva as male and the god's energy or Shakti as his spouse. God is everywhere seen as the beloved divine couple. Philosophically, however, the caution is always made that God and God's energy are one, and the metaphor of the inseparable divine couple serves only to illustrate this oneness. So that's an opportunity for one more story. Those of you who have been to Kadavo Temple know that it doesn't have a separate shrine for Shakti or Parvati, as is common in a Shiva temple. So a shrine for Shiva, generally as the lingam, is the main shrine, and then on the right side there's a shrine for Shakti or Parvati. Quite common. So we don't have that. And at least a few times a year, those who are first-time visitors ask me that question, well, you don't have a shrine for Parvati, why is that? And then I explain that, well, we have a shrine in the back, right corner, which is Ardhanarishvara. And the reason we have that is because in our Guru's teachings, Shakti is not separate from Shiva. So we have the image where they're both combined. So it works. In other words, not having a Parvati shrine, we get the question and then we get a chance to put forth Gurudeva's teaching on it. Fire gives off heat, which is a form of energy. If there's no fire, there's no heat, and you can't separate the two. The energy produced by the fire and the fire are really a one reality. The term that encompasses this idea is Shiva-Shakti, as a hyphenated word. When it's hyphenated, it makes it clear it's a one word. Adamuga Navalar presents this idea in Saiva Vinabhyadai too. He asks the question, what is the Shakti of Shiva? Answer, the power of Shiva, which is inseparable from Shiva, like the heat of fire, which is inseparable from fire. Same answer. Thank you very much. Om